This is my first after-action report for Combat Mission Battle for Normandy. I'm going to be playing the map Last Defense, and I'm going to be playing it as a human player versus an elite AI. The scenario in Last Defense is that an American infantry company is guarding a small hamlet in Normandy, and then is attacked by a Panzer Grenadier division containing half-tracks and German armor. And the idea is to hold off the German attack until such time as American tank destroyers can be summoned to break the German armor and then retake what's left of the town. Okay, so let's start by looking at the map. Looking at the map, we see a town in a river valley with shallow hills at each side providing a reverse slope defense. In the town proper, we see numerous buildings, which can serve as an armored kill zone, and fields to the south of the village, which can serve as an infantry kill zone. It is expected that the Germans will create a base of fire in the southern woods, and then advance using a combination of infantry and armor to break into the town from one or more narrow points. Once into the town, the superior German infantry supported by tanks and half-tracks should logically be able to clear out any of the remaining resistance. That is what I assume my AI opponent's plan is. In order to defeat the German attack, my plan is to try and separate the German armor from the German infantry, as these forces mutually support each other. The way I'm going to attempt to accomplish this is by withdrawing all my forces into a defensive line in the town proper, leaving only sacrificial pickets on the exposed flanks. Infantry will be engaged, while armor will be ignored unless it comes in among the buildings. If a German tank commander is stupid enough to enter the town proper, lacking good infantry support, then bazooka teams placed behind the infantry squads will attempt to disable it. The general idea is to try to keep the German infantry out of the town at all costs, while waiting for our tank destroyers to arrive and take on the German armor. If a position on the line is spotted by the Germans, then the plan is to retreat and regroup in houses behind the line. Mortars will also be used to try and keep the German infantry pinned. On the US left flank, I have placed an anti-armor team, medium machine gun, and an infantry platoon hidden in the trees. The idea is that covering this gap provides a good site to ambush German infantry. We then move over to the central section, where we have concentrated the bulk of our squads. There are two anti-armor teams concealed behind buildings along the north-south road, and numerous ambush squads hidden in the building. There are also two artillery spotters in this section, and the majority of our command and control. After that, we move on to the right flank, where there are two distinct groups. First, the main force on the right flank hidden in buildings with an anti-armor team, and second, a small ambush force and pickets located on the far right to engage forces coming into the woods. Last but not least is our mortar section, which is located over the river on the left flank. Surprisingly, the mortar's command team can actually draw a good bead on the southern woods, such that they can actually spot linear targets along the German base of fire. So, let's get the mission started. Turn 1 begins with our troops attempting to find cover in houses in the center of the town. Unfortunately, however, the Germans are not willing to let us go, and begin a preliminary bombardment. Fortunately for our troops, none of their preliminary bombardment coordinates are particularly accurate, and they mostly just chew up the hillside. After almost 4 minutes of ineffectual bombardment, the Germans finally reveal their hand, and a Stug 3 shows up on the right flank. Nearly 5 minutes in, the first Stug is joined by a second Stug. The Germans also decide to keep up their bombing campaign by blowing up an empty French house. After a few more minutes, the Germans decide that they're going to get a little more serious about forming a base of fire, and they move a Tiger tank up onto the left flank. Now there is German armor sitting on the left and right flanks, but not advancing. At around the 9-minute mark, the Germans get a little more serious, and the Tiger on the left flank advances, as do the two Stugs on the right flank. It looks like it's going to be an armored pincer. 12 minutes into the battle, the real shooting war begins. The German Tiger, scanning for targets in the left flank woods, unfortunately finds two squads of our infantry, and lights them up, and sends both of them reeling from the woods. Fortunately, however, the Tiger has not located the anti-tank team, which may be critical because the anti-tank team is currently looking at the Tiger's left side, where the armor is slightly weaker, and where we might get a disabling kill. At this point in the battle, things start to go our way. At the end of last turn, I revealed the bazooka squad, and they managed to draw a bead on the tank without being observed. Now, first shot they fire hits the lower right hull of the Tiger, damaging the radio. The team then pauses to reload. And it's at this point they make their shot of a lifetime. The bazooka fires, and bang! Lower hull, the weakest point on the tank, and they manage to damage 3 systems, including the optics and the tracks. They also stun the crew. They fire one more time, but this time it hits the turret and doesn't do any damage. On the right flank, the 2 Stoogs also move up, with one of the Stoogs charging our right flank forces, and apparently not registering that there might be troops in the buildings, parking itself right in front of our. The next turn on the left flank, the Tiger then bafflingly turns its right side towards our anti-tank crews and takes an anti-armor grenade followed by a bazooka round in its vulnerable right side. This immobilizes the Tiger and turns it effectively into a turret, thus basically knocking it out for the battle, though it still be able to fire the occasional round. The Tiger then pops smoke, and the half-tracks that were carrying the German infantry advance. And these guys do put up quite a significant hurt on our infantry squads. Back on the right flank, it seems like the curious Stoog is planning to actually assault the forces in the houses, and it blasts through the stone wall. This is a bad idea for a number of reasons. The first being that a Stoog is not a Tiger, and the second being that a Stoog has really weak side and back armor. It's also about to run into a prepared anti-armor position, and yeah, popped. The Stoog is now out of action, and at the end of the turn, the Germans only have 1 functional tank. The crew pops, and they find the hidden infantry. To recap, at the almost 15-minute mark, 2 German tanks have been effectively knocked out, and our main threat is now the 4 half-tracks on the left flank and the encroaching infantry on the left side. There's also infantry moving up on the right side, but that isn't nearly as close to our lines. Beyond this, the German base of fire in the South Woods is now fully functional, so most of our shooting is going to have to take place from behind the first row of buildings. It's also time for our artillery to join the battle, as there aren't so many moving tanks. So we're planning a bombardment on the left flank just above our woods. Things as they stand seem to actually be going quite well.